They will show you a palace of marble and gold, a testament to order. They will speak of loyalty and tradition, but they lie. For beneath the polished floors, the foundations are riddled with termites of envy, and the gilded walls muffle the whispers of betrayal. You are taught to admire the palace. I will teach you to see only the rot, because the one who understands the decay is the one who will own the rubble. The common man sees power as a solid thing. He sees crowns, titles, org charts, and laws carved in stone. He sees the public pageantry of strength, the parades, the speeches, the boardroom pronouncements. He believes this is the reality of the structure. He is a fool. He is a spectator admiring the facade of a theater, unaware of the chaos of ropes, pulleys, and desperate stagehands hidden behind the curtain. The master strategist, the student of Machiavelli, knows the truth. Every structure of power, no matter how magnificent, is a living, breathing organism, a body politic. And like any body, it is subject to disease. It has a heart that can weaken, a circulatory system that can be blocked, and hidden cancers that fester in the dark until the entire system collapses. To dominate any situation is not to launch a frontal assault against this body. That is the method of brutes, and it invites massive resistance. No, the first most critical act of domination is an act of pure intellect. It is the act of diagnosis. Before the first move is made on the board, before the first whisper of dissent is uttered, you must become the physician of this body politic. But you are not a physician seeking to heal. You are a pathologist seeking the precise location of the disease, the pre-existing condition you will exploit to induce a terminal outcome. Your first arena of battle is not the public square, but the quiet solitude of your own perception. Your first weapon is not a sword, but a scalpel of analysis, poised to lay bare the anatomy of your target. While others are distracted by the body's apparent strength, you will be obsessed with its vulnerabilities. You will become a predator, and a predator does not waste its energy chasing the strongest of the herd. It watches, it waits, and it focuses with absolute and chilling clarity on the one that limps. This is the first forbidden art, to see the world not as it presents itself, but as a collection of weaknesses waiting to be leveraged. Machiavelli understood this fundamental truth. He observed that the stability of any state, any stato, rests on a delicate equilibrium. In his words, all well-governed states and wise princes have taken care not to drive the nobles to desperation, and to satisfy the people and keep them contented. This is the picture of perfect health. Any deviation from this balance, a resentful inner circle, a discontented populace, is a symptom. It is a crack in the foundation, and it is your point of entry. To find these cracks, you must employ the first two forbidden tactics. They are not acts of aggression, but of profound and deceptive intelligence gathering. The first of these is tactic number 1, the principle of armed neutrality. The greatest mistake of the ambitious man is to let his ambition be seen. The moment you signal your intent to climb, you paint a target on your own back. Every other player on the board recognizes you as a threat. Your words are scrutinized, your motives questioned, and alliances form against you before you have even made a single move. You become predictable, and in the game of power, predictability is death. Therefore, your first objective is to become invisible. You must adopt the cloak of absolute neutrality. You are not a player, you are a piece of the scenery. You are the quiet assistant in the meeting, the reliable but unremarkable colleague, the seemingly apolitical friend to all factions. You must be Switzerland, calm, pleasant, and utterly non-threatening. But this is not a passive neutrality, it is an armed neutrality. While your exterior projects harmlessness, your mind is a fortress of strategic calculation. In this state of feigned indifference, you become the universal confessor. Those in power will speak freely around you, for they do not see you as a rival. The disgruntled will come to you with their grievances, for they see you as a sympathetic, powerless ear. They will tell you everything. They will reveal their frustrations with the leader, their jealousies toward their peers, their secret ambitions, and their crippling fears. They will hand you the keys to their psychological prisons without ever realizing it. You will listen patiently, nod sympathetically, and offer no opinions of your own. Every secret you collect, every vulnerability they confess, is not gossip. It is ammunition. It is a weapon you are cataloging and storing in your arsenal for a later, more decisive time. You are the priest in the confessional booth of power, learning the sins of every man and woman who will one day kneel before you. To be underestimated is not an insult. It is the most powerful strategic advantage you will ever possess. Once you have established this position of trust and invisibility, you begin tactic number 2. Map the economy of envy and fear. The organizational chart you are shown is a fiction. It is a neat, rational diagram designed to conceal the messy, emotional reality of how power truly functions. Power does not flow through designated channels. It floods and trickles along the hidden aqueducts of human passion. To dominate, you must discard the official map and draw a new one, a map of the soul. This is the economy of envy and fear. First, you map the currents of envy. Envy is the engine of betrayal. You must ask, who resents the success of another? Who believes they deserve a position held by someone else? Who feels their contributions are overlooked while others are praised? Identify these individuals. The junior executive who seethes with jealousy every time his boss is commended. The loyal deputy who secretly believes he is smarter than the man he serves. These points of envy are fault lines in the structure. They represent individuals who, with the right nudge at the right time, will not just permit the leader's downfall, they will actively participate in it, believing it to be their own path to justice and recognition. Second, you map the geography of fear. Fear makes men predictable, and predictable men are controllable. Who is terrified of being exposed? Who has a secret that could ruin them? Who is insecure in their position, constantly afraid of making a mistake? The man who fears losing his status will do anything to protect it. He will betray his allies, abandon his principles, and pledge allegiance to any new power that promises him security. His fear is a leash, and by identifying it, you have found the handle. Finally, you map the web of obligation. Who owes favors to whom? A favor is a debt, a chain of command far stronger than any official title. By understanding who is indebted to whom, you understand who controls whom. This emotional and political accounting, this true ledger of power, is your most treasured document. It reveals that the organization is not a pyramid of strength, but a tangled web of resentment, insecurity, and obligation. It is a house of cards, and you, the silent architect of its collapse, are the only one who knows exactly where to push. This is the foundation of all that is to come. You have not raised your voice. You have not drawn a sword. You have simply watched and listened and understood. You have stripped away the illusion of power and seen the raw, naked machinery of human nature beneath. For the first victory is not won on the battlefield, but in the mind by seeing the truth no one else dares to acknowledge. Comment. The veil is lifted to affirm your understanding, and subscribe to learn how to weaponize this truth in the phases to come. The diagnosis is complete. You have dissected the body politic and hold in your mind the map of its soul, a tapestry of simmering resentments and hidden anxieties. The common man, driven by impatience, would act on this knowledge immediately. He would strike, exposing a rival's secret or fanning the flames of an existing conflict. This is the mark of an amateur. It is a clumsy, noisy assault that alerts the system to the presence of an infection. The body's defenses would rally, the wound would be cauterized, and you would be exposed and purged. The master strategist understands that the most devastating attack is the one the victim never sees coming. The goal is not to wound the structure, but to infect it with a slow-acting poison, to cultivate a disease that rots it from the inside out. This next phase is the war fought without battles, the conquest achieved through whispers and favors. It is the silent infiltration. Your objective now is to weaken the reigning power, to hollow out its foundations, so that when the time comes for the final push, it will not be a mighty fortress you are toppling, but an empty, brittle shell. To achieve this, your actions must be disguised. They must appear as acts of benevolence, of chance, or even of loyalty. Every move must be a paradox, an act of sabotage wrapped in the appearance of support. Machiavelli notes that a prince must often act against faith, against charity, against humanity, and against religion to maintain the state. Here you will act through these very virtues to dismantle it. This requires the application of the next two forbidden tactics, tools of subtle and profound corruption. The first of these is tactic number 3, the poisoned gift. The Trojan horse is not merely a myth, it is a blueprint for strategic infiltration. The principle is simple. The most dangerous threats are those that are willingly invited inside the gates. Your task is to become the purveyor of such gifts. You will offer assistance, resources, and advice to your rivals and superiors, but each offering will be carefully engineered to achieve a destructive end. It must seem, on the surface, to be an act of selfless generosity. Its true purpose, to increase your target's dependence on you, to amplify their inherent weaknesses, or to steer them onto a path of self-destruction, must remain your secret alone. Consider the superior, who is indecisive and prone to over-analysis. You do not challenge his authority. Instead, you become his most indispensable aid. You bring him more data, more reports, more variables to consider. You praise his thoroughness and prudence while burying him under an avalanche of information. His natural hesitancy metastasizes into complete paralysis. As vital decisions are delayed and opportunities are missed, the organization begins to suffer. The frustration of his other subordinates grows. They see a leader who is incapable of action, and they see you, the diligent and tireless assistant, working valiantly to help him. When the inevitable failure occurs, the blame falls squarely on his shoulders, while you are perceived as a loyal, tragic figure who did all you could to prevent it. You have assassinated his reputation with nothing more than diligence. Or consider a rival who is arrogant and reckless. You do not stand in his way. You clear the path for him. When he proposes a risky project, you become his most vocal supporter. You use your carefully gathered intelligence to help him craft a compelling proposal, ensuring it gets approved. You help him navigate the political obstacles, all the while knowing the project is fundamentally flawed and destined to fail spectacularly. You have given him the rope, the platform, and the cheering crowd for his own hanging. When it all collapses, he is exposed as a fool who gambled with the group's resources. You, who so publicly supported his ambition, can express shock and disappointment, solidifying your image as someone whose trust was tragically misplaced. You have weaponized his own arrogance against him. Every piece of advice you offer, every introduction you make, every resource you provide is a poisoned chalice. It is offered with a smile, accepted with gratitude, and it corrodes the recipient from within. You are not a traitor, you are a helper. You are not a saboteur, you are an enabler. And that is infinitely more devastating. While you are weakening the system's individual components with your gifts, you must simultaneously turn the entire organization against an external phantom. This requires tactic number 4, fabricate a necessary enemy. Machiavelli observed that a prince becomes great when he overcomes the difficulties and obstacles placed in his way. When a structure is at peace, it is stable, the loyalties are firm, and the leadership's position is secure. Your task is to disrupt this peace, to create a state of siege, for it is in a crisis that power becomes fluid and hierarchies can be redefined. If a genuine crisis does not exist, you must manufacture one. The most effective way to unify a group internally and test its leadership is to invent or wildly exaggerate an external threat. This necessary enemy becomes the focal point of all fear and anxiety. It could be a rival company, a shift in the market, a new regulation, or even a nebulous internal threat like declining morale or inefficiency. The nature of the enemy is less important than its function. Its function is to create panic. Panic clouds judgment. It forces hasty decisions. It makes people crave a savior. You, from your position of armed neutrality, will be the one to discover this threat. You will raise the alarm, presenting carefully selected data or anecdotal evidence that paints a picture of imminent doom. Because you have no apparent ambition, your warning will be perceived as objective and sincere. Once the alarm is sounded, the existing leadership is forced onto a stage they did not choose. They must react. Every decision they make under this manufactured pressure will be scrutinized. If they act decisively, you can frame them as reckless and authoritarian. If they act cautiously, you can paint them as weak and indecisive. You have placed them in an impossible position, a strategic dilemma where every move is the wrong one. As the organization pivots to face this phantom menace, its resources are diverted, its normal functions are disrupted, and its internal weaknesses, the very ones you diagnosed earlier, are strained to the breaking point. The paranoid manager becomes more controlling. The insecure executive becomes more indecisive. The friction between envious rivals intensifies as they scramble to prove their worth in the face of the crisis. The entire system turns feverish. And all the while, you are the calm center of the storm. You are the voice of reason, offering sober analysis and tireless support. You are Paul Revere, warning of an invasion that only you can see clearly. While everyone else is staring at the enemy on the horizon, an enemy you painted onto the landscape, no one is looking at you, the true agent of chaos, systematically dismantling the fortress from within. You have united them against a shadow, and in doing so you have blinded them to the real danger that stands right beside them. The seeds of ruin are now planted, the body is infected, the fever is rising, and the patient is beginning to look for a new doctor. The stage is almost set for the final public act of this quiet tragedy. The seeds have taken root. The poisoned gifts have done their work, paralyzing your rivals and rendering them dependent. The fabricated enemy has induced a state of low-grade perpetual panic. The body politic is now sick, weak, and disoriented. Its immune system is compromised. What you have created is a vacuum, a growing void where strong leadership used to be. The structure is now ripe for collapse. But a collapse in itself is not enough. Chaos serves no master. The objective is not merely to topple the old order, but to be lifted upon the shoulders of the people as the architect of the new one. This phase is where the secret war of infiltration erupts into a public spectacle. It is the transition from saboteur to savior. This is the orchestrated crisis, and it is played out not on the battlefield, but in the theater of the human mind. Your rise to power cannot be perceived as a naked ambition. It must be framed as a reluctant, sorrowful necessity. You must appear not as the man who wanted the throne, but as the only man capable of saving the kingdom from the fools who currently occupy it. As Machiavelli famously wrote, "Men are so simple and yield so readily to the desires of the moment that he who will trick will always find another who will suffer himself to be tricked." The trick now is to position yourself as the inevitable answer to the very problems you have so carefully engineered. This grand deception relies upon two of the most cynical and effective tactics in the entire Machiavellian arsenal: the manipulation of blame and the embodiment of destiny. First, you must master tactic number 5, appropriate the credit and outsource the blame. The crisis you have cultivated is now beginning to bear its bitter fruit. Projects are failing. Deadlines are missed. The threat you manufactured seems more real than ever, and the current leadership appears utterly incompetent to handle it. Now is the time to manage the narrative of this failure. The principle is one of sublime political alchemy. You must ensure that all negative outcomes are attached to your rivals, while all positive developments, no matter how small, are associated with you. Machiavelli advised the prince to delegate unpopular duties to others and to reserve the distribution of favors for himself. You will take this principle to its extreme. When a difficult and unpopular decision must be made, layoffs, budget cuts, the termination of a failing project, especially one you secretly sabotaged, you must be the one to argue passionately against it in public while ensuring it happens in private. You will appear as the compassionate advocate, the defender of the common man, fighting against the heartless calculus of the leadership. Allow your rivals to be the public face of the bad news. Let them be the ones to deliver the grim pronouncements and absorb the resulting anger and resentment. Their political capital will burn away, while yours, fueled by your performance of noble opposition, will accumulate. You will be seen as the one who fought for us, even as you ensured the necessary brutal action was taken. Conversely, you must become a master of appropriating credit. Any minor success, any glimmer of good news must be traced back to your influence, however tangentially. Did a team inspired by a casual remark you made weeks ago achieve a small victory, you must frame it as the result of your vision and mentorship. You will praise them publicly, sharing in their glory, and positioning yourself as the source of their inspiration. By consistently and subtly placing yourself at the genesis of good news and at the forefront of opposition to bad news, you create a powerful psychological dichotomy in the minds of the populace. Your rivals become synonymous with failure, pain, and incompetence. You become synonymous with success, compassion, and foresight. You are not claiming to be a better leader. You are demonstrating it through a meticulously curated public record. You are using their failures you helped author, as the pedestal upon which you will eventually stand. As the reputation of the old guard crumbles, the people will begin to look for an alternative. This is the moment to deploy tactic number 6. Personify the inevitable alternative. Your ascension cannot look like a coup. It must feel like destiny. You must not appear to be seizing power, but rather to be reluctantly accepting a burden that has been thrust upon you by circumstance. The groundwork for this has already been laid. You are the neutral observer, the loyal aide, the tireless worker who has been a constant calming presence throughout the unfolding chaos. Now you must crystallize that image into a symbol of salvation. You must cease to be a person and become an idea, the idea of order, of stability, of a return to greatness. You will not campaign for the leadership position. You will let others campaign for you. The colleagues you have cultivated, the subordinates who see their own advancement tied to yours, will begin to voice the thoughts you have carefully planted in their minds. Only he saw this coming. She is the only one who truly understands the problem. He never wanted the spotlight, but the times demand his leadership. Your silence and apparent reluctance will be your most powerful campaign tools. They will be interpreted as humility and proof that you seek not for personal gain but for the good of the whole. In your interactions, you will speak the language of sorrowful duty. I wish it had not come to this, you will say, sighing with the weight of the world on your shoulders. We must all do our part to navigate these difficult times. You will speak of a return to first principles, of healing the divisions that have torn the group apart, divisions you yourself have widened. Your narrative must be one of reluctant acceptance. You did not choose this path, the path chose you. The failures of the current regime have made your intervention not an ambition, but a moral imperative. You are the Cincinnatus being called from his plough to save Rome. Through this performance, you transform a hostile takeover into a rescue mission. You are no longer an ambitious usurper, but the physical embodiment of the group's last, best hope. Men do not resist their saviors. They welcome them. They will hand you the crown not because you fought for it, but because you have convinced them it is their only shield against the storm. The crisis has reached its zenith. The old king is exposed as naked and powerless. The people are clamoring for a new ruler. You have engineered the disease, managed the symptoms, and now stand ready to present yourself as the only cure. The final act is at hand. You have learned the anatomy of the body politic and the art of its infection. You have mastered the theater of crisis. Now, before we reveal how to make your dominion permanent, ensure you are subscribed, for the final and most forbidden wisdom is reserved only for those who are prepared not just to seize power, but to wield it without sentiment. The moment of ascension has arrived. The chaos you have nurtured has reached its crescendo. The old leadership is isolated, delegitimized, and blamed for the very storm you summoned. The populace, desperate for stability, now sees you as their sole salvation. But this is the most perilous moment. To take the throne is one thing, to hold it is another entirely. Victory is not secured until the possibility of a return to the old ways is not just defeated, but utterly annihilated. This is the coronation of iron, a process of brutal finality that requires the last and most ruthless of all Machiavellian tactics. The transfer of power must be swift, total, and irreversible. It is a surgical strike on the heart of the old regime, followed by a masterful rewriting of history. Hesitation at this juncture is fatal. Any lingering remnants of the former power structure are embers that can, with a single breath of rebellion, reignite into a conflagration that will consume you. As Machiavelli warned, Injuries ought to be done all at one time so that, being tasted less, they offend less. Benefits ought to be given little by little so that the flavor of them may last longer. The first part of this dictum is the blueprint for your final move, the calculated, concentrated application of cruelty to achieve a permanent peace. This is the masterstroke, the forbidden seventh tactic. This is tactic number 7, the scapegoat of Orco. The name comes from one of Machiavelli's most chilling and instructive historical anecdotes. When Cesare Borgia conquered the province of Romagna, it was plagued by lawlessness and disorder. To pacify it, he appointed a cruel and efficient lieutenant, Ramiro de Orco, and gave him absolute authority. De Orco swiftly restored order through brutal methods, executions, confiscations, and public humiliations. He did the dirty, necessary work that Borgia needed done. But in the process, de Orco became universally hated by the populace. Once his utility was exhausted, Borgia, wishing to show the people that the cruelty was not his own design, had de Orco arrested. In a shocking public spectacle, his body was cut in two and displayed in the public square. Machiavelli notes that the ferocity of this spectacle left the people at once satisfied and stupefied. Borgia had it both ways. He reaped all the benefits of the cruelty, and then won the love of the people by punishing the man who carried it out. This is the model for your consolidation of power. You cannot afford to be seen as the tyrant yourself, especially not in the first moments of your reign. Your image must remain that of the reluctant savior. Therefore, you must find your own Ramiro de Orco. This will be a loyal, ambitious, and utterly ruthless subordinate. You will empower this individual to carry out the necessary purge. This purge is the injury that must be done all at once. It involves the swift and decisive removal of every potential threat to your new order. All key figures from the old regime, the loyal deputies, the powerful department heads, anyone with the influence and resentment to form a nucleus of opposition, must be neutralized. This can take the form of firings, demotions, forced retirements, or transfers to irrelevant posts. It must be a comprehensive sweep, leaving no pockets of the old guard intact. Your scapegoat will be the public face of this brutal but necessary housecleaning. He will be the one signing the termination letters, delivering the bad news, and enforcing the new harsh standards. He will absorb all the hatred, all the fear, and all the resentment that this process inevitably generates. People will whisper of his cruelty, his ruthlessness, his cold ambition. They will see him as the true tyrant behind the throne. Meanwhile, you will remain above the fray, expressing disappointment that such measures are necessary and promising a swift return to stability. Then, when the purge is complete, when all your enemies have been removed and the new structure is in place, you will execute the second part of the maneuver. You will make a grand public display of listening to the complaints against your lieutenant. Acknowledging the pain he has caused, you will remove him from his position. The more dramatic, the better. A public firing, a formal investigation into his abuses of power. You will sacrifice your most effective tool on the altar of public opinion. This act serves two brilliant purposes. First, it cleanses you of any association with the cruelty that secured your throne. You are not the butcher, you are the just king who punishes butchers. Second, it sends a terrifyingly clear message to everyone else in your service. Loyalty is essential, but no one is indispensable, and no one is above the new law you represent. You emerge from this bloody theater not only with your power absolute and your enemies vanquished, but with the adoration of the people, who now see you as their righteous protector. With the slate wiped clean, you begin the second half of Machiavelli's maxim, the slow, deliberate distribution of benefits. The coronation is not just an event, it is the beginning of a new order. You immediately establish new institutions, new traditions, and new laws that perpetuate your power. You promote those who were overlooked by the old regime, creating a new class of nobles who owe their entire careers to you. You grant small favors, offer public praise, and create a sense of optimism and renewal. While the pain of the purge was a single shocking event that will fade from memory, your acts of benevolence are a steady, continuous stream that reinforces loyalty every single day. And so, the project is complete. The domination is total. What began as a silent intellectual diagnosis of weakness has culminated in the forging of a new, unshakable reality. You did not conquer the palace with an army. You convinced its inhabitants to tear it down and hand you the stones to build your own monument. The history of the previous era will now be rewritten. It will be remembered as a time of incompetence and chaos, a dark age from which you, the founder, delivered the people. Your ambition is erased, your methods are forgotten. All that remains is the result, a stable, powerful state with you at its center. This is the ultimate expression of power. It is not about being good or evil, loved or hated. It is about being effective. It is the capacity to see the world as a machine of human nature and to have the audacity and the cold, clear-eyed courage to become its engineer. The throne you have built is not one of gold or marble. It is a throne of iron, forged in the fires of calculated necessity, and it is designed to endure.